Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we read Journeying Back in Time to explore a fascinating and often misunderstood aspect of the Middle Ages, the system of crime and punishment. Now, when we think of medieval justice, our minds often jump to dramatic public spectacles. But was it really all like that? Let's dig deeper and uncover the truth behind medieval punishments. First, it's crucial to understand that the Middle Ages spanned 1,000 years, and justice wasn't uniform across Europe. What was common in one village in France might be completely different in a city in England. However, a central idea was that punishment should fit the crime, not just to penalize the offender, but to deter others and maintain social order. Let's start with the most common offenses. Things like petty theft, public drunkenness, or minor arguments were everyday issues. For these, the punishments were often designed to cause public shame rather than physical harm. Imagine being forced to wear a drunkard's cloak, a heavy, awkward barrel, and being paraded through town. Or being placed in the stocks with your hands and head secured, while neighbors heckled you or even threw rotten vegetables. These punishments, like the stocks and the pillory, were highly effective social tools. In a close-knit community where everyone knew each other, public humiliation was a powerful deterrent. It wasn't just about the physical discomfort. It was about the damage to your reputation. Your social standing was everything, and being shamed publicly could affect your ability to trade, find work, or even marry. This was social justice in its rawest form. Another common form of punishment, especially for disputes over money or property, was the fine. This was a practical solution. The local lord or the community would benefit directly from the payment. For example, if your pig wandered into your neighbor's garden and ruined their crops, you'd likely have to pay a fine to compensate them for the loss and to the court for its time. This system was the backbone of local law and order. But what about more serious crimes? This is where things get more complex. For crimes like assault, major theft, or betrayal, the punishments became more severe. One surprising method of determining guilt was trial by ordeal. The belief was that God would intervene to show the truth. One famous example is the trial by hot iron. The accused would have to carry a piece of red-hot iron for a set distance. Their hand would then be bandaged and inspected a few days later. If the wound was healing cleanly, they were deemed innocent, as it was seen as a sign of divine protection. If it was infected, they were guilty. Similarly, in trial by water, the accused was thrown into a blessed body of water. If they sank, they were innocent. If they floated, the water was rejecting them, and they were guilty. While this sounds incredibly unfair to our modern ears, to the medieval mind, it was a way of placing judgment in God's hands. Now, let's address the most severe punishments, those reserved for the worst crimes like treason or murder. These were indeed often brutal and public. The goal was to send a powerful message to anyone who might consider a similar act. These public displays were a form of mass communication in a time without mass media. They were a stark reminder of the power of the king and the severe consequences of defying the law. However, it's important to remember that these extreme punishments were the exception, not the rule. They were reserved for crimes that threatened the very fabric of society. One common misconception is that prisons as we know them today were widespread. In reality, long-term imprisonment was rare. Jails were mostly just holding places for people awaiting trial. They were often dark, crowded, and unpleasant. But the idea of serving a sentence of several years was not a standard part of the justice system. Punishment was swift, and more often than not, public. So, to wrap up, the medieval system of punishment was far more nuanced than we often give it credit for. It was a complex web of fines, public shaming, and yes, severe physical consequences, all designed to maintain order in a world very different from our own. The emphasis on community and reputation meant that shame could be as powerful a tool as any physical punishment. While it was certainly harsh by today's standards, it was a system that made sense within the context of its time, reflecting the social values, religious beliefs, and practical needs of medieval society. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical deep dive. What part of medieval justice do you find most surprising? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. Until next time, stay curious.